any progress in terms of development. And without development, we cannot have peace, because we cannot, without development, create jobs. And this is why power is central, is so critically important. And it's something that is like defined solutions. We read about statements in the manifestos of the different political parties. We read statements from government, but on the ground we don't see any practical improvement. And it's so important. And there are so many segments in the power equation. But I think, even though I'm not a technical person, the transmission is the most critical, because it links generation with consumers. And for many of us, this is what we think is important. Luckily for us, we have someone who is heading the transmission company, who, as far as we know, is just as committed as any one of us to get the power issue resolved, so that the North can make progress in terms of development, create jobs, bring prosperity, and exit from the level of insecurity and poverty that we found ourselves at the moment. And I have listened to him speak, and I have seen how much effort he has made, and I thought it's important that we bring stakeholders. These are people who I have got tremendous influence in the social thinking and policy in the North, people who are technical, some maybe not technical, but in a position to listen to the work that he has done, to see what are the issues involved, and how can we collectively come together and create a momentum that can bring about the changes that we require. My sense is, if we cannot fix the power issue in the next few years, then we cannot progress. And if we can't, given the level of poverty and the population that is growing, we are likely to have some kind of explosion, God forbid. But I want you to see the seriousness of the issue. And we are doing all this with a very high sense of responsibility. If we come here with anger because some people are not doing, I think we should understand the idea of this dialogue is not necessarily to point fingers at who is not doing what. That is not going to get us very far. It is essentially to understand what is it that we can do to resolve issues. So I want us to understand, and we have made this arrangement without any protocol, without any high table, so that we can all belong to one particular level and interact in a very closely and responsible manner to see how can we, around this table, speak to the issues so that we can know exactly where is the problem, what is it that we can do. The transmission company has a responsibility, which is transmission. So we are aware that there are others who are to generate, there are others who are to distribute, and there are difficulties and problems in all these sectors. But we cannot expect the transmission company to also answer questions that relate to other areas. And I want to ask of you not to see this as an opportunity to defend yourself or your staff or your organization. No, it's an opportunity to admit that there are problems. It's an opportunity to try to understand where these problems are. And for those of you who are senior engineers who have held some of these positions and are aware of some of these difficulties, to help us with solutions or ways we can go around some of the problems we are facing. The final objective of all this is that we as the ARDP will come up with new perspectives, new solutions to some of the intractable problems that we have been facing in the last few years. And as we are speaking, what we are going to discuss here is being live streamed, because we have a number of people who cannot come, especially young people in different parts of the country, some even outside, who follow our platform and who will be able to share and contribute, especially some of our engineers who are in the diaspora, who may have experiences from the countries they are living, who might be able to. And it is our intention, after all this, we will sift through what has been discussed, and we are going to issue it in the form of a newsletter so that we can document what we have done and we can build on it for subsequent dialogues. And we do hope, after the transmission company, from our understanding of the issues today, we might engage the other part of the power equation to also come for similar dialogues so that we can really engage and understand. Finally, I want to...
We have to come up with a plan to see how we can make transmission work. Because every distribution company that time, they explain their problem with transmission. Transmission is the problem that they have, and that's the reason why they are not delivering. So nobody is looking at the investment that distribution is not bringing, and nobody is looking at any other thing. So what we did at that time is to come up with what they call 20-year least cost transmission expansion plan. Now, you cannot expand transmission without looking at the discourse, because we know we are like a logistic company. Now, if you are a logistic company, if you don't, you have to know the man who has the load, no? And you have to know the person who is also ready to take the load if you transport it from one place to another. So, if you are doing study of transmission, you have to also take into account the discourse need and the generation need. That is how it is. So we decided to employ one of the best companies in the world, which is Mrs. Fichner, to do the study. But there's something I want to tell you. Okay, you know that one. Before now, the theory of expanding of power in Nigeria is that there has to be load, I mean. There has to be load. So we take electricity to where there is load. And what is this load? The load is industry. It is industry. It's not people's consumption. So if you say, only where there's industry you're going to take power to, what are you saying? It means that places that have no industry will perpetually be without electricity. Will be without electricity. And that is why under that kind of theory, we have 8 330 kV substations in Lagos alone. The whole of Northwest has only 3 330 kV substations. I'm telling you, because under that kind of theory. Under that kind of theory is the reason why Benin has 2 330 kV substations, and the whole of Northeast has only 2 330 kV substations. So we have to hire a consultant, and we have to brief the consultant, because if that theory was what applied in Dubai, there's no way Dubai will develop, because Dubai is a desert. So why if you apply a theory that only where there's industry, how can you develop a place like Dubai? No way. So we have to make the consultant to change that theory, and that is the reason why that theory was changed, and that's the reason why our expansion now is not like that way that it was done before. It's done differently. Of course, there's need to serve industries, but there's also need to serve any place where there are human beings, so that industries can go to that place. That is exactly what we did with 20-year discourse transmission expansion plan. So we delivered that plan, and it was approved by government. And then, on the basis of that plan, we came up with what we call Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program, which is a 4-year program out of the 20-year least cost transmission expansion plan. Can you go to the next? Now, this Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program has 4-point strategy. That is what you see above there, 4-point strategy. Before now, there was always need expand the grid, the quality of power. So this transmission expansion plan has quality of the power. And if you look at the first 1, 2, 3, the first 3 is the frequency control. Now, what is the frequency control? The frequency control is the art of balancing the demand and supply. And that is why I want to make it very clear to all the guests here, that in electricity, the demand and the supply must balance all the time. So if your generation capacity is 10,000 and your transmission capacity is 10,000, if your disco will demand only 1,000, you can only generate 1,000. You cannot generate more than 1,000. I mean, is that also so? That is a fact. That is how it is. Now, the art of balancing, the process of balancing the demand and supply is what was lacking before. Now, we have to make it work. The grid code provided that all generation companies must be on what? Free government. And what is the free government? It means the generators should respond to the contraction and expansion of the distribution companies automatically. That's what it means. When we came, not more than 20% of the generators are on free government. So you have to, and in NCC now, you have to call, if the distribution reduce load, you have to call generators also reduce one load, generators also reduce, that's what they used to do. So we said no, they have to be on free government, because that's, but the good news is that as of today, all the generators that are connected to the grid, they are on free government. All the generators.
Ask people to fix this problem. I think the professor, Bugaji, mentioned that there are so many other sources that we need to explore. Yes, they do come to our office. We want to partner with you. Naturally, we should be the off-takers. We should be able to sign PPAs with solar. The marginal cost of solar is coming down every year. It will get to a point that some countries are saying 3-4 cents. It will come down to us. But we cannot, because we are not bankable at the moment. And the problem is, our problem, the Nigerian problem. We had a retreat just 2 weeks ago, and we invite Dr. Sediko from I think he's with ECOWAS in Abuja. And he gave us the exact numbers that the MD gave us from other West African countries. Why is it working there and it's not working in Nigeria? It's because of we, the people, and the system we're operating in, the legal system. Today, our people cannot disconnect. Even if you disconnect, to your face, they will tell you that we'll call somebody to reconnect. And the theft on our lines is astronomical. And really, the number of meters, we're talking about now, the number of meters that are bypassed is unprecedented. What do we need to do? We need a system that we can deploy technology to remotely monitor any kind of tampering that would require putting either SIMs on every meter. Otherwise, the theft would continue. And if we as a people don't change, if the revenue is not coming from bottom to serve the generators, then it will never work. A contract would never work unless there is a bank guarantee attached to it. And with our balance sheet today, no bank will give you that, and therefore we cannot sign a PPA with anybody. As a DISCO, I can speak for Kaduna and Kano because I know what we've been doing. And I think this is a pleasant news to most of the participants that are here. We have, despite all the challenges, I don't want to go into the issue of tariffs, the issue of shortfalls, and how that is affecting injection of capital, which is required to upgrade this dilapidated network that are due to be revamped because the OPEX of maintaining them is increasing year by year. We have been able to talk with some partners in London, Conexa, and they're called Energy Company of the Future. We signed an MOU with them in December of 2018 for Kaduna and Kano. These are investors that have access to huge capital. They have brought in the CEO of Rockefeller Foundation. They are Shell Foundation. They've come here to Kaduna. We are going to run an integrated model with them such that we have off-grid and on-grid, and we are going to select areas, ring-fence areas, so that we would make it financially viable. $51 million. They are going to create reliability in the industrial area such that even half a second of outage would attract penalties, and they are very serious. We have seen the Kaduna State Governor, we have seen the Minister of Power, we have reaching even TCN because there's a SCADA they are going to deploy, and we're reaching TCN to integrate with the SCADA system, and the plan is to deploy this year. And upon successful implementation of that, that also includes some PV plants that are going to be built. And once that is successful, we are going to scale up to take another feeders until we cover most of the urban areas within Kaduna. But it will take some years.
The other issue also, Mr. Chairman, sir, is the issue that the MPTCM raised, which is extremely important. The issue of making sure that the discourse, well, 40% of the discourse are owned by the federal government. Therefore, one area is if they cannot make the investment that they promised to make, don't forget they all signed agreements that they are going to make investment, they are going to revamp their facilities. If they don't have the facility, let the government invest, have the facilities there, and then capitalize those investments. I agree with the Honorable Minister here when he indicated that it's not the issue of going abroad to bring investments, but it's the issue of ensuring that you have not only, because if you just bring money and you don't have the capacity, you're wasting your time. The two things must go together. Ability to perform, that's having the technical knowledge, and also the finance required. And I think that is very, very important. The issue, of course, has been the transmission network. But don't forget, for example, us manufacturers, some of you may not know, we self-generate today 13,000 megawatts, self-generation. In my factory, for example, for the past 2.5 years, I have not used NEPA at all. In fact, when I was using at that time, it was standby. NEPA was standby. It's my main generator that I so we self-generate over 13,000 megawatts. Today also, the statistics by the discourse will show you that we have over 60% of their bills are supported by us manufacturers. And we made that quite clear. This is why, I don't know why he didn't mention, but he has so much to talk about. There is an issue of ensuring that the eligible customers, there is one scheme called eligible customer scheme, whereby we produce power, the power produced by TCM, we can go to them specifically and do some off-grid and gated industrial clusters. This is extremely important, Mr. Chairman, because if the transmission network is bad, then we on-grid, or let me say off-grid facility is what is the best for us. And the only way that can work is through the eligible customer scheme. Unfortunately, when it created the regulation for eligible customer scheme, it made a lot of regulations which we as manufacturers couldn't just stomach. We are business people. And as of today, over 2.5 years now, we've been in court. We took the government to court. That's what I say government, we are taking Nigerian Regulatory Commission to court, as well as the discourse, because the bills that they gave us at the end of the day, we said no, we cannot handle those bills, because we don't know the basis, we don't know how they arrived at the tariff at that time, and so on and so forth. But this is for discussion another day. The most important part of the thing here, which is the takeaway, is the eligible customer scheme should be made to work, so that those of us who want to use the power from earlier off-grid, we should be able to have license from them. Thank you very much, sir.
I think for anybody who has listened to what has gone down, our weakest link as far as power supply is concerned is the discourse. And there's need for government to now look at it holistically and find a solution to the problem of the discourse. It's either we continue to have discourse and capitalize like it is suggested by the lecturer, or remove discourse and government takes over and make sure that it stabilizes that. Because whatever you generate from the GENCOs, whatever you transmit, if these people cannot get the power to the consumers, it doesn't make sense. And that is where the problem is. And since that has been identified, then government must come up with a policy to deal with that aspect.
Well, I think the problem of power has been a long-time problem. And at the point of privatization, just as you are aware, we, the staff, we felt that it was not right for them to privatize at that time, because there was nothing on ground. There was nothing on ground in the sense that they had a lot of deficiencies that they needed to put on before they would have sold it. But they hurriedly, and the people didn't understand. Even when we were talking, they thought that maybe we are not serious, because they now brought an example of telecoms, how telecommunication companies were sold and how they became effective. But we say no, the issue of electricity is different from that communication, because you cannot compare electricity distribution and communication. That one goes by air. But this one, you have to draw a line from a point to a point before you can get your electricity. Now that the thing has gone, in fact, that is why, since the privatization took place, this problem has persisted because the weaker points was the transmission before among the three legs, because a tripod system where the generation generate, transmission transmit, and then the distribution distribute. And at a point we had a new MD who came up with all the seriousness and all the things that you can muzzle together to make the system work, and he has done a lot tremendously. But the problem now is with the distribution, and the distribution problem is twofold. The managers of the system and even their consumers. The problem lies in between them. Now the problem of the management is that the companies, the people that bought the company, is they are not able to pump in sufficient funds to take care of the system. And that is why you will discover that most of the time is from collection. They are trying to pay the bank that took loans to buy the system. They are trying to pay the embed, this bulk electricity company. They are trying to pay them. And then they are also trying to pay the transmission companies. And these are the problem, because they don't have the money on ground. So they kept on, from the little they collect, and that's where they now pay. But with the consumers, our problem with the consumers is that we have a lot of energy theft. A lot of people are bypassing meters. They are not paying us at when due. And sometimes, because of these incidences of energy theft, where people are bypassing meters, they are not able to